Hello, folks, and welcome to the latest edition of the Two Bro Natty Pro podcast. We're on episode number 8, James. And James, you're looking mighty spiffy there in your brand new Chesterfield chair. We were just remarking on that as we came in here. I love it. You're a bit Bond villain-esque or gentleman club-esque, as you say. And the other thing that is very noticeable about you as well is your face, man. Those cheeks are getting razor sharp.
Yeah, it's first of all we'll talk about the beauty of the chair and then the ugliness of my face. So
We'll do a prep update for sure.
yeah, the this for me, whenever you're trying to establish a new habit, you have to make it enjoyable. And I'm stealing a quote from James Clear in Atomic Habits, but
Okay.
it's something that I really do buy into. If you want to start a new habit, try to make it enjoyable. Try and find enjoyment. So I used to read all the time, and just with how busy that we've been with the online, we're dealing with clients all over the world, day in, day out. We're running the gym, which is a full time thing in its own as well. And it says for me to start my reading habit, I want to create a nice environment. So part of it was I'm going to get a custom made chair. So I got this beautiful Chesterfield chair built in England and shipped across. And last Thursday was the first. No, sorry. Last Thursday was the first evening that I had allocated 45 minutes to read as I waited on my sauna heating up. And that's going to be try to get my habit from, like, if I can do it on a Tuesday and a Thursday night, at least get 2 nights where I can get about an hour is what I'm aiming for reading of each time. So that's what the chair was for. I had said that the chair was only going to be use for reading, but I have assembled a new piece of furniture at that side, so I've got all my tools lying out at that side. So I was like, I'm just going to have to sit in the chair. So here I am, and as you made reference to, I'm like a Bond villain stroking his pussy.
Yeah. Well, let's try and stay away from the pussy galore references.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, then you've got to tell us now, what are you reading at the moment then? What did you read in your chair?
Well, actually, the oh
While you fetch the book. Oh, you've got it. Oh, yes. Right. Do you know what? I've got a news reference point for you as well. Okay. Not tasteful in any way at all, but tell us about that book.
so this is the A Night to Remember. It's yes, it's by Walter Lord, and it's obviously to do with the Titanic, as you can see. It's like sort of accounts on the events leading up to the sinking of the great ship. Obviously, me being from Northern Ireland, and this famous ship was built in Belfast. I know that's not a good advertisement for the unsinkable ship becoming sinkable, but it was not the ship's fault.
It was sailed by a Scotsman, I believe, was the.
It was, and I think he was probably intoxicated.
I think that the rumours have since been dispelled that it was inebriated, but let's just go with the stereotype anyway.
Yeah, sure.
Fully
Um,
pitched.
so this it, yeah, I'm actually probably about halfway through at the minute, and
Oh,
it is
nice one.
very, very good as an account. Like you can really visualize. It's very descriptive, and yeah, it's really, really nice. It follows the accounts of numerous people that had
Hmm.
given sort of testimonies exactly what happened after the events and stuff. So it's really, really interesting.
Excellent. Okay, and then give me one more then. What's a have you got a favourite book that you could recommend?
I'm not. I sound a
Or a
wee.
top three one that just springs to mind that you think that's a good one?
Honestly, it's most of the stuff that I like reading is psychological stuff.
Mm.
So
Well,
say
you
like
mentioned Atomic Habits.
Atomic Habits by James Clear. I obviously read a lot of anatomy stuff and whatever else.
Mm.
It's not that side of it. It's generally going to be like the chimp paradox, things like that. There,
Oh, you'd love these. These are good.
yeah, you said you
The,
would
the the graphics in these are tremendous.
love it.
The illustrations are amazing.
Yeah,
I know the Chimp Paradox. That's a great one as well. I would definitely recommend that. At risk of turning this into a book club, I'm currently reading Moneyball, which is the book about the American baseball and data analytics and sport.
mm,
It's quite fun, and obviously they made the movie about it.
yep.
I love all those books as well, James, that you're describing as well. And I go through phases of fact and fiction, but sometimes I just want an adventure story. So a great one is the Patrick O'Brien. series, and they made one of his books into a movie as well. And you might have seen this one. It's called Master and Commander
Oh
with
yeah.
Russell Crowe, right? So yeah, 20 odd books in the series. But
Nice.
anyway, let's get on with this then, and we'll get into the podcast. Right, I'm going to do the news because this has been a theme, and we're going to keep going with this on here. Right, you'll be pleased to hear, James, Harry and Meghan are moving back to the UK.
Yay.
God, I missed them. I don't know why they do it to themselves. The newspaper headlines will be, well, fuck, they just like having a fight, right? I remember that South Park episode when they were on their worldwide privacy tour. Um,
Yeah, for me, they're probably the most trustworthy out of, if you can deem them part of the royals. Like, there's a lot of people. I think that obviously we have opinions based on some of them, from Prince Andrew right through to King Charles.
oh
People,
God, right. Let's not even get into this. This could be another podcast, right? And if you
yeah,
like David Icke, they're all actually probably lizard people. Right,
yeah.
so that's some news. Premier League is back this weekend. Liverpool, what do you reckon? In the league, where are they going to place? And who do you think is going to win the league?
Well, they're still trying to get that Barcolas.
Oh, come on, just give me a quick prediction.
Honestly, literally, it would just, I would say, would be still pushing for top four, but I can't see us any higher. Nah.
Sixth place, right? And I think Arsenal will win the league.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, right. And then the other headline I've got, which feels apt for what you've just showed me on screen there. Have you seen this? A guy in Bedfordshire has made the news, and he's upset your fellow patriots in Northern Ireland because he's made himself a theme park ride that looks like that. And for those of you listening, that is a Titanic themed ride, and it's a big slide that goes up.
Love it.
Oh, I mean, too soon. It was in 1912, right?
Look, whenever people are talking about people being offended, it's generally not people from that area that are offended. It's people who like being offended or offended. So
Yeah.
Northern Irish people are very humorous. We find it funny, same as the Scots. Thick skin. We can take a joke. It's fine.
You got to laugh at yourself.
Yeah.
Laugh at yourself. Right now, I should announce some other news. Myself, yourself, and our fellow WNBF pros, Stuart McCulloch, Finbar Murphy, are hosting a seminar.
Yeah.
So we're going to do an online webinar just like this. We'll probably not be chatting in chat. Well, you might be in your Chesterfield. We'll probably not do a book club, but we're all going to do individual talks, and then we're going to do a roundtable Q&A. That'll be for all the members of the WNBF Ireland and for anyone else that's interested as well. So our listeners of the podcast, please do show up for that. That'll be 2 p.m. BST time, August the 30th. We'll record it as well, so get your questions ready. I'm going to talk about something Pete Week I think I was going to do, but I keep changing my mind a little bit on it. I know Stuart was going to talk about the natural mindset. He quite liked that one on there. And have you got a topic in mind for yourself, James?
Yeah, I think a lot of it's going to be training principles and protocols that I believe are best suited for each phase. So whether it's all
Nice.
phases, so we'll discuss a little bit like about what the science is, and also my opinion on volume, intensities, even exercise selection, moving between off-season and prep phases as well.
Excellent. Okay, and I mean that's almost a perfect segue. I've got some questions lined up here around topics like that we could discuss on here, unless you had ideas yourself. However, I think we should do a prep update.
Yeah.
On yourself, because your face is getting thin, and I described you as I don't know if I said it on the podcast. I called you the British Charles Glass, but
Yeah.
now I've changed to calling you Danny Padilla. And if you don't know who Danny Padilla is, Danny Padilla came, I think the best he ever did was maybe fifth place at the Olympia in the 1980s, and that was behind Franco Colombo, Tom Platz, Frank Zane, and a few other guys. But it's widely sort of recognised that just like that 82 Olympia, which Arnold wins, with Mike Mentzer that was a bit of a fix that
Mm,
Franco Columbu wins it, and many people think that Padilla was the uncrowned champion. I mean, he was an amazing physique, and in fact, you know what? Again, because of the powers of the internet, we can just get a little photo of him up
yeah.
as well. So let's do that. And I described you as the British Danny Padilla. That was a comparison that I made, and you were very happy with that. So here you go. Here's Danny Padilla. Let me see. You'll remember this famous one. There he is. There. That's a classic, famous shot there, right in the middle. Check
Yeah.
those quads out, right?
Incredible.
I think is he in Pumping Iron as well? I feel like he's in it for a short period. I think he's one of the guys that goes and jumps on Arnold when Arnold shows up at Gold's.
Oh no, I don't think no, that wasn't him.
Was that someone else? Was that
Yeah.
another one? But what that I think that's him in the 81 or is it 82 Olympia, the one I was just describing. There's another great shot of him there as well. Look at that. What a great
Yeah, I
physique.
think he was like I'm a wee bit taller. I think he was like 5'2".
You're not fucking taller than him, shut up.
Mate, I'm as tall as you, just not as fat.
We should say that people thought that I was kind of tall because I've been hanging about with you.
It's because you always wear insoles.
I feel like you're
Boosters.
trying to start a rumor there.
Yeah. You took it during COVID. You didn't understand what they were talking about boosters, so you put like 6 boosters in your shoes. You know.
For the record, I do not wear insoles.
Yeah, you have good posture though. I think I'm a wee bit of a hunch.
Right, here we go. Let's get these up here. I like this shot, James, that you've done. And by the way, you're really embracing the classical aesthetic. This is a great shot. Look at that. Can you see
Yeah.
that one there?
Yeah, it's just come up. Yeah, like
Yeah,
that.
there you go.
I can't remember what day that was. A few days ago.
Yeah, that's down here is 2 days ago.
Yeah. So I ended up having to do a bit of a refeed last weekend. My loss last week was a lot more than kind of what I was aiming for. And the physique on Friday, Saturday morning looked really flat. So I scheduled a high day on Saturday, ended up running
Yeah.
up through to Sunday just to
Mhm.
sort of observe how it would look with a little bit of blood movement on Monday. And to be honest, it was probably the first time I'd been quite happy with the look front to back. For me, there's still a little bit more detail that I'm not chasing. It'll come with the rate that I'm currently working with. But the thing with obviously I compete with the PCA in the class. I'm a classic pro athlete as well. And in 2024, whenever I competed in the pro ranks, I couldn't pose classic because I had 2 discs out of my back and SI dysfunction. So this year I've got a wee bit more movement in the back. So I'm like, I can finally start posing a little bit more classic, which has been quite cool to play about with some shapes this year.
Do you know what, James? See, you say that, right? That with the 2 discs out in your back. I didn't know you had it in you to pose like this until you started posing this year.
Yeah,
And you can see you fit the class much, much more so when you're doing these types of poses. I mean, that's a great shot, that
yeah,
vacuum that you're doing. And that's why I made the comparison with the Danny Padilla
yeah.
um, shot. I do wonder, see with this double bicep, if there's something more interesting you can do with it to make it a more classical aesthetic. I'm not sure what it would be, but maybe it's just an arm slightly higher or lower. I mean, it's just a double bicep, isn't it? But you could do a classic variation of it.
Yeah,
Do
I've
you
got
know?
a few. I've actually we took a few shots like that, but I didn't upload them all to bore people. But yeah, there's a like the I sit with the hip slightly twisted, brings nice detail out in the hamstring, and then offset it into one hand higher than the other. So I've been playing about with those angles too for the PCA. Obviously, right now, like the WNBF, as people know, there's a fixed criteria, and you can almost like be if you're not competing in a classic division, if you're a bodybuilder, they want you posing straight on for the most part as a bodybuilder because some of the judges will call you out a little bit on trying to pose classic. So I'm trying
Well,
to work between the two.
well, that's a discussion, right? As if we had last year, like they moved the goalposts on bodybuilding, and they what now if you pose like a classic bodybuilder, you're no longer a bodybuilder, you're a classic bodybuilder. But I mean, yeah, that's a different discussion. But you got to be happy with this look, man. This is a great look. And you made a great point as well about the fact that you ate a little bit more food to sort of to change the rate of loss. And I think that's a great teaching point that you just made in there, because when you're getting down there towards that sort of that number on the scale, which is important, you know that the visual starts to become more and more important, and the rate of loss, you're trying to obviously start to limit it, and you've just eaten up that little bit more to sort of get the look that you want, and obviously at the same time to slow the rate of loss so we're not losing the muscle tissue, and so you can maintain the quality training. Is that a fair reflection of what you were doing?
Absolutely. And
So
like the phrase I use quite often with people and clients even is the cliff edge. And
yeah,
we can continue to push and push, but there is this sort of fine line before, where you push maybe too hard, and beyond that point, it's very hard to recover it. And whenever the physique is just looking a little bit too flat, for me, like running flat is fine whenever there's still body fat to come off. But whenever you're virtually there and you're in the last, maybe realistically, I think another 2 pounds of fat for me across my whole body off will be me completely 100% in. So I don't need to chase that off. What I'm trying to do is slow the rate of loss, which actually elevated to 0.7 kilo last week, which was kind of uncharacteristic. Even though
yeah, it's a lot. It's a
yeah,
lot when you're that lean. Like if you think about that as a percentage of your body weight,
yeah,
it's probably over 1%, and you don't want that. I mean, some of it's fluid, right? But
you can feel it. Like whenever you have that loss, you know yourself. Whenever you get that lean, and even before I weighed in, I was like, I'm lighter. I know that this is I felt a significant lightness, and there's almost like a dragginess that comes with it. And then obviously you start seeing the face sunk in a wee bit more extreme than the week previous. And for me, I kind of knew, and because the average before that was around 0.3 kg, which was
yeah, okay.
went to 0.7. With the refeed at the weekend, it's looking like my rate of loss this week is in around that sort of 0.28 between 0.28 and 0.32 will be that's the sort of window that I'll fall into this week.
And that's what we're looking at. And you made a looking for. And you made a good point about running flat when you've still got the body fat, because the teaching point I sort of wanted to get across was like, don't be having refeeds and feeding up and stuff like that when you've still got all that fat to lose in your physique, right? You don't need it necessarily. The only
Yeah,
reason you need it is for like a psychological break on there, but you're not affording yourself that sort of luxury when all the fat's still to come off.
yeah.
The reason you're doing it is for a different reason from there. Um, but no, man, you look great. I'm really pleased for you. Really, really pleased. Do you want some news?
Go.
In my training diary, James, and on my whiteboard, I've got 3 names written down. Right? One of them's Dirk Emmerich, one of them's Nayan Babakar, and one of them's James Melville. And it all says, that's your competition. Get a fucking grip. Right? So, like, I'm looking at this, I'm thinking, right, James is fucking serious. And I know you're serious. So I'm like, right, that's what you're up against, Andrew.
Yeah,
You better get yourself in shape. So, look, I'm inspired. It's competition, man. And
yeah,
that brings the best out of me. So, like, there you go. You've got it. I'm like looking at you thinking, I need to kick my ass to
yeah,
catch up with that.
yeah. Well, I obviously for us, like we have 2 different show openers. Mine's going to be
Yeah.
like this September 13th. Yours is going to be the end of October. So we do expect for both of us to be at different levels of condition.
Sure.
Probably, but the reality is we want to, and you'll maybe not need to be just as lean as me walking on stage, with your physique. And this is the thing we talked about before, Andrew, where it's not the leanest person on stage that should win. It's the person that's showcasing their physique the best. So there's going to be a sweet spot of condition for that physique, sweet spot of condition for that physique. It's not 3.8% for every single individual on stage. That person could maybe look better at 4.8%. That person could look a little. Nobody's going to, in a good lineup, nobody should really win if there's 6.5 or 7%. We should be like like into the
Yeah. There's a threshold for sure. Like you got to maybe go past 5%, but between
yeah
5% and 2.5%,
you
like
yeah
anyone can win.
yeah, you have to find that look, so you could turn around and go, right, oh, I think you could push towards that, two in the two range, 2.8%, whatever it is, and your best look was actually at 3.5, 3.8,
Yeah.
whereas there was still that bubbliness in the muscle, the freshness in the muscle. Sometimes push with that condition kills the look of the muscle. And
Yeah.
I've fallen victim to that, and that's why I call that your cliff edge. So observe it. It's like, oh, I'm really close to that. So refeed a little bit, and then allow you kind of like nudging past it. It's like almost kicking the can slightly down the road, so you can get to that point where it's like, well, that's the one. And then sometimes you can feel that you're completely in. You get your stage footage back, your photos, and you see the comparisons. You go, actually, I probably could have pushed for a little bit more.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And that's kind of, so we use what we do on stage as an evaluation tool, which becomes
Yeah.
very important in a Grand Prix style season where you've got consecutive shows to refine that look.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with you. 100% agree. I mean, that point about the being -5% and then what is the best look for that physique between that 5 and that 2.5% is so important. And I'm very aware of that because next to your name and Dirk's name and Babacar's name and that diary that I've got through there that I look at when I train, it says you're trading off your shape, but you need to be lean. So
Yeah,
like I'm not going for 2.5% because I'm not well, I don't know if I've ever been there. I've been fucking crazy, crazy lean. But I know that my strengths and my physique are probably to be that tiny little bit fuller on there. Not that I'm not going to try in any case, and that's how I'm going to win. Although I will say your symmetry is improved, and that might be because you've not got the disc issues. You can train that little bit harder. It's a better season of training, and you can pose better. But being that lean does bring your waist circumference in. It gives you that more dramatic V taper when you do the vacuum pose and you hit those sort of shots. So there's value in being that lean down there. It's just some people overdo it and they just lose all the muscle mass and they just look like nothing.
yeah, 100%. Well, like you spoke about Babacar there, like Babacar realistically,
I sent you a photo of him and you just put an emoji back being like,
yeah, he doesn't need to be 2.5%.
no,
There's no
no.
need. There's no need because he is that good, and like he's got that bubbliness in the muscle. He, probably 4.5% is a good spot. 4.5 to 5% would be absolutely bang on for him, and he'll probably beat. I don't know if there's anyone else on the planet that could beat him, unless he leaves the door open and screws it up.
I mean, the the fantasy lineups are guys like Kendall Richmond at 100%. Bada Lekon, if he turns up at 100% this year. Last year he had some issues. Sorry, 2 years ago when he competed, he had some issues with injuries. He's just back competing again, but he's not got his shape. Um, Nathan Williams, completely crazy physique. I think he's maybe the one that could go against him. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I can beat him. I'm thinking my strategy this year though will be when I have a coffee on beforehand, I'll maybe see if I can put some laxatives or something in that coffee while he goes to the bathroom or something, and then he doesn't get on stage. That's maybe the only way.
Yeah,
But you want to stand against these guys in any case,
yeah.
right? Right, Joe James. I've got some questions for you.
All right,
I think we should do these as absolute quick fires, right?
let's
And
go.
then we can get into it once we stop on them, right? And it's very simple, right? I realize over the weeks and months that we've been doing these that I don't know how much we've actually talked about our favorite exercises or anything like that. So tell me, best exercise for quads? Go. One word or two.
For me, it's low foot leg press. I,
Hamstrings,
I'm going against the science, prone leg curl every single
prone
time.
leg curl, glutes,
Split squat,
um, medial deltoid, side delts.
well, we've got the prime. selectorized side lateral raise. So for me, that's been a game changer since we bought it last year.
Chest.
I love a good inclines, and I've really enjoyed incline Smith pressing this year. 1.25 bacromial distance, like quite narrow grip, elbows tucked, beautiful, beautiful exercise.
Trapezius muscles.
Don't train them that much because I think they get so much direct work from pretty much most of your rows.
Come on, don't cop out. Just tell me.
At the minute, it's the 45-degree angle mega mass row, so that's the higher handle.
Oh yeah, I know the one.
Smashes your upper traps beautifully.
Middle of the back then, because I've got an idea of back fitness, but just go middle of the back exercise.
Again, if it was free weight, it would be a chest supported dumbbell row.
Right, yeah.
Or okay. We've also a cambered bar in the gym, which sometimes I would use. It's fantastic.
Oh, I love it. Yeah.
You want just a lot of good scapula movement on that, so that's what we're focused on.
Lat specific or lat width?
Lat width. For me, it would be a turning into a single arm row.
You were very. You gave me a row the other day. You're like, Andy, you need to do more of them. I'm like, oh, okay. I like the intensity, but yeah, no, I'm going to do them, James. I've got to do them tomorrow.
A phrase that I use with clients, particularly whenever I set up exercises, is don't be inconvenienced by the inconvenience. You know, if there's a little bit a little bit of a setup, slightly more of a setup for an exercise than another one, but it's potentially better value specifically for the area you're trying to bring up, then it's not, and that inconvenience should be nullified immediately and just do it.
No, you made a good point. Like, and the truth was, you're like, Andy, you need to develop that area. So do the fucking exercise which is best for developing that area. That's why you should be doing it. I'm like, I can't even argue with that. Right, biceps.
Yeah, it would have to be Bayesian curl, probably. Cable.
What curl, sorry?
Bayesian curl.
Bayesian curl.
So like DAP, bicep curl.
DAP.
Dual assistant.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Got it. Triceps.
I'm really liking just a lean out tricep extension V-bar, where you put your tailbone up against the upright of the machine, get yourself nice and stable. You can get a lot of weight on it. It's fantastic for long head activation, beautiful for the stretch, particularly as you get into this bit and you allow the elbow to lift a little bit into shoulder flexion, and then just as you're initiating elbow extension, allow nice control on shoulder extension. You get a lovely little
single arm or dual arm.
Dual
arm, right? Okay.
Just love it, yeah.
Abdominals.
The only thing that I think that it has value in terms of loading would be like a cable crunch.
Okay, yeah, you're fond of them. And then last but not least, for most people, just an accessory. Certainly for Ronnie Coleman and Dexter Jackson, the calves.
For me, it would actually be a leg press calf raise.
Do you know what? I like a leg press calf raise as well, by the way. I just think the angle seems to be quite good on the calf raise.
You get a lot of...
I do rate it.
Well, it sort of simulates similar hip position than a donkey calf, but I feel that it's more loadable and you can brace a little bit better on the... You know, because the hip's essentially in the same place, so it means the hips flex, got a bit of stretch in the hamstring. It's going to influence the stretch in the gastric as well. I just think, and I think a lot of EMG data sort of does suggest that out of standing calf raise, seated calf raise, and a donkey or hip flex kind of calf raise, the hip flex calf raise variation has highest combination of activation between the soleus and the gastrocnemius, so you get a better bang for your buck, in my opinion.
Fair play, right? I think I've got an EMG at the uni. I never told you about the time that I broke the EMG at the uni either.
Nice.
That was 12 grand. Whew. Anyway.
Yeah.
To get really good EMG data, you've got to get you get surface electrodes, but you want to get the ones which are invasive, so the needle that goes straight
Yeah.
into the muscle. But the problem, obviously, with that is, are you then going to get good data? Try to do contractions while you've got what essentially are needles invasively penetrating the muscle belly on there to get the true action potentials. But
Yeah.
just a thought on there as an aside. Right. Bodybuilding exercise, which is popular, do you think is overrated?
Um, Sissy squat. I see like sissy squat variations. Where you're
Yeah, I'd give you that. I would absolutely give you that sissy squat variation, particularly on a hack squat.
yeah,
It just looks like that stuff that Tom Platz was doing. I reckon that guy could have done anything and his legs would have grown.
100%.
But
Tom
like,
Platz had also big joints. You could see that right
oh
through
yeah,
those wrists. He had big joints. I always think like whenever I look at my wee sort of dainty joints, I'm like,
yeah.
this is an exercise I know if I do that, I'm going to be crippled for weeks. There's other guys I see with bigger joints. I don't know if there's any research on that, but they do seem to be able to handle a lot more.
Oh, for sure. I mean, like I've worked with strongmen and powerlifters.
Yeah.
Those guys, they've got big, thick vertebrae. They've got big joints, and you know what? You can measure that stuff. You can get into anthropometrics, and you can just
Mm,
measure the thickness of wrists and stuff like that. And I mean, you'd be able to see it for sure.
yeah.
Here's an interesting aside. A lot of that stuff that Tom Platz used to do, it's all in magazines and stuff like that you would see. And a lot of people don't realize that they would just take photographs for magazines of people doing certain exercises, which they knew were good shots to take that
Mm,
had nothing to do with the exercise regimes. And a lot of the exercise regimes that are going into these magazines, it was all ghost written anyway.
yeah.
So how much of the stuff was actually true that some of these guys are actually doing or not? I don't know, but I mean, 20 years of squatting like that man squatted, doing those sissy squat variations, I think would wreck you. But again, he did have the big the big joints, as you say, and you've seen it in his physique. I mean, compared to Danny Padilla, I mean, the thickness in the guy's waistline,
Yeah.
it's a massive difference. Okay, underrated exercise. Give me one or two. Because and I know this will change depending on the day of week that I ask you, so don't worry about being definitive.
I
Give me
actually,
two underrated ones that people should give more attention to.
I actually talked about this with a client throughout the week, and it's an exercise that I don't see a lot of people do anymore.
Okay.
And it
Oh,
would be
there's a lot of them for
a
sure.
dumbbell pullover.
Yeah. Oh, that was going to be the one that I said. I've not done dumbbell pullovers for ages, and we've had dumbbell pullovers machines in my gym, and I quite enjoy doing them from time to time.
Yeah.
But I forgot how good it actually is,
Mm,
and how much better I actually think it is than any pullover type machine
yeah.
going.
Yeah.
So tell us about that.
I think, like, for me, if I'm doing it, my preference would be a low incline bench because
Yeah,
we kind of look at different parts of shoulder and arm extension, pulling over. We'll
yeah,
have lat involvement. You'll also have pec activation as well. The sternocostal and the sort of abdominal part of the pec,
yeah,
pull
yeah.
the arm down too.
Do you think it's more of a chest exercise or a lat exercise while we're going into it?
So for me, if you were on a flat or a decline bench doing it, you'd probably get quite a lot of pec.
Mm,
Just if you sort of think about where you're starting off with that movement and
yeah.
where you're actually finishing.
Hmm.
I feel like on a low incline, you can actually keep it more in that lat range.
I agree. I think it's more lat. Yeah,
So, and again, one of the things whenever I'm assessing clients' exercises and giving them the critique, I'm like, try not to spend time where you're stacked. It's just a general rule of thumb for every exercise. Contractions for me need to be like a dimmer switch. It should be on and off, up and down, but never on off.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
and whenever you pull across and you're in this sort of inactive position where you're just stacking the dumbbell over your shoulder and chest,
yeah,
you're just allowing everything to switch off. So for me,
yeah. Exactly. Yep.
I would get my clients just to pull it into that space where the arm is still coming slightly back from the shoulder
And,
position,
and you're keeping that tension.
keeps the tension there. And with the dumbbell, I feel that it just allows us to keep the elbows tucked a little bit more, which aligns just really, really well with the stretch. We have to understand that this, the lat isn't just here around the corner.
Yeah,
It's you can see it here.
yeah, yeah, for sure. And then it hooks around the arm as well.
So you can actually feel that contraction, wee bit bro sciencey. But for me, I think that one of those exercises, keeping pullover variations in there, is really good. We also know that we're strong whenever the muscle is being stretched, so it should be a movement that you can potentially handle decent load as long as you can do that safely and ensure that the shoulder is subsequently warmed up from previous exercises.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. That last one you made on there, because if you go into that exercise cold, then you might start noticing a little bit of shoulder niggles and things like that.
Yeah,
However, if it's the third or fourth exercise down the line, then your shoulders should be nice and warmed up. And actually, if it's the third or fourth exercise down the line, you're probably a little fatigued, which is not necessarily a bad thing, because then at that point in your session, you should definitely be focusing more on quality
yeah,
of the repetition. And the thing that I really think with that exercise, which really makes a difference, is trying to make sure that you're not overextending in the rib cage
that's
and
right.
then just causing yourself to effectively a lot of the time just to do a crunch, and you
Yeah,
get a lot of movement in the lower back. And if you can eliminate that portion of the movement, then you can really isolate the lats. So yeah, I think that's a great shout. Did you
yeah.
have another one on the tip of your tongue?
Um,
We can go with that. That's
yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I think like what most of the trends I see are really good. Particularly, look, it's not a coincidence that the guys who are at the top of the tree in terms of like athletic prowess in this game are mostly doing the right things. It's very infrequent that I would look at any of the top natural bodybuilders and go, what he's doing is wrong or what he's doing is wrong. Most of the guys at the top have got it kind of worked out and will play about with things just for the sake of variability and to ensure boredom doesn't come into the programming. So
yeah, and that's important as well. That last point, like I think I was saying this to loads of guys that asked me about blood flow restriction training and why I was doing it. I was like, man, when there's a lot of different reasons. I can give you all the science if you want, but when you've been training arms for 20 years, you just want to try something different now and again, right?
absolutely.
And as I was saying to them, like I'm not sure my arms have got any bigger, but I'm also sure that they've not got any smaller.
Yeah.
So it seems to be at least as effective, and not as bad on my joints. And I'll definitely go back to doing well, I have gone back to the conventional bicep training for the time being. Okay, so the points you made earlier on, right, about fatigue management and everything like this, when we were talking about sets and reps and so on, the questions that I had after that little sort of foray into your favorite exercises and everything, I wanted to know about this concept of deloading, right? And during the prep, we talked about what keeps the muscle, or rather, what builds the muscle keeps the muscle. That was a concept that we talked about last week. Should we alter our training to manage fatigue during our prep? That's our question. So start doing less volume. What do you think about that? And then should we be programming in deloads? Because I'm sure you'll recall a few years ago there was absolutely a movement towards that, and I'll not reveal the punchline for the listeners. But what do you think?
I definitely think exercise adaptation, selecting certain exercises that have a higher impact on. I hate using phrases like axial fatigue and systemic fatigue, but it's not something that you're going to just pull that card out of the deck for every single athlete. Again, it has to be observational. If I'm looking at, so I've had feedback.
That's so true what you've just said. Yeah.
I have a lot of guys competing in September and they're maybe pushing in terms of activity. Their food is probably the lowest that it's been for many of those days. So we have to look at the recovery profile, but the best way to do it is to observe the visuals, right? That physique's starting to look a bit too beat up, but it's also listening back to their feedback. They're interconnected to what their body's feeling. So they're coming back going, James, I'm starting to get sore here. My joints are sore. This is sore. And at that point, only an idiot would ignore all of that information coming back. So some of the guys I've decreased down to maybe we're doing 3 working sets on certain exercises. I've tapered it down to 2. Other exercises as well, where I'm like going, right, we've got multiple leg press style patterns. So whether it's a squat and a leg press, maybe we don't need the squat in there now. We'll start to take that out. But you're also looking at it as a point of what is recoverable. And this has been a massive thing, like recoverable.
Yeah. What you've just said there, what is recoverable? Okay.
Yeah. And that has to depend on, there's obviously genetic proponent to it. There's also how lean that individual is at that point. That's also then what is the other metrics that that person is working to in terms of they're having to do 20,000 steps, they've got an hour and a half cardio, 5 times per week, whatever it is. You have to measure all that in and sort of go, what is the total amount of stress that is accumulated across that week? And if I
And
get,
it's difficult to measure that. It
it's
really is to get a handle on that.
yeah, well, I think that's going to be the difference with human dissection of the information and AI. For us, AI will definitely obviously crack that, but for us right now, the weaponry as a human is listening to what your clients are saying and sort of going, okay, maybe we'll sort of taper this off and see how this feels. Okay, that's good, right? Keep working with that. And that's another idea that sort of coincides with deloading. Do you need to deload?
Mm-hmm.
For me, like a lot of times I would only use a deload as a last resort. I think if you're managing the stress and intensity of your sessions themselves, you should be able to probably get like move from one program into another without necessarily deloading. Deloading would just be if you're in this amber alert and the lights are flashing, then it's like, right, let's allocate a massive reduction in activity. We'll even take your training from 5 days per week to 3 or 4, and use more time for recovery. And you can sort of coincide that sort of deload with maybe slight elevation in food, which might seem sort of counterintuitive, but you kind of feed the recovery a little bit as well. Allow the
Yeah,
body to reset,
yeah.
even if it means stepping back a little bit, and that's going to allow that person to hopefully hit the NOS once they get to the other side of that phase.
Well, that last point you made there is a good one there about hitting the NOS as well at the same time. So I'm going to share the screen here again on this one because I think it'll be helpful. So if you're listening to this, and I'll try and describe it. But those not familiar with deload, here's an illustration of it on here, and the concept really comes from probably strength sports. So in something like powerlifting or in a strongman, very often what people will do is they'll do cycles like this graphic that I've got on here, just pulled up at the moment, where they'll maybe do a 4 week block, and that 4 week block we call the mesocycle. And then within the mesocycle, you've got what's called a microcycle. And then the whole thing put together, that 16 or 32 weeks, is the macro cycle. So you train in blocks. And what you would do is, as part of a mesocycle, every maybe 4 or 6 weeks, you introduce a planned deload. Yeah. But everyone's an individual, as you point out, James. And I found just by speaking to the clients that some of them don't need a deload at 4 weeks. Some of them will go to 6 or 7 weeks
Yep.
and they don't need a deload, and they might need a deload at that particular point. And then some of them will go all the way through the program and they're fine. They never needed to deload there at any sort of point. But it's important to really stress, pun intended, that deloading comes from strength sports and it comes from powerlifting and like I say, strongman. And the exercises that we do in powerlifting and strongman are so different from what we're doing in bodybuilding. So the overall stress that you're placing on the body in terms of the intensity, and when I talk about intensity, I mean the percentage of the 1 rep max, is much, much higher in powerlifting compared to something like to bodybuilding. But the other thing is it's the exercise selection in terms of the use of free weights as well. The proportion of free weights you're using is much, much higher. And so the load on the central nervous system is very, very different from what you get from bodybuilding. And look, if I just from speaking anecdotally and personal experience, if I do a full week's worth of training and it's all sort of machine-based stuff versus a full week of doing free weight-based stuff, I noticed the difference massively. I can keep going and keep going and keep going and do more and more volume, doing machine-based exercises compared to doing these free weight exercises. There's a huge, huge difference. So a lot of the observations and the studies that were coming out and people were suggesting that we should be doing deloads in bodybuilding, a lot of that was being pushed by people who were coming from maybe powerlifting style backgrounds and things like this. Now, that's not a bad thing. That's not a bad thing at all because it's a potentially useful concept in there. But the research trials that were done on this sort of topic sort of showed that, well, if you don't need to deload, then you shouldn't necessarily take a deload. And actually, if you do deload, then there is the potential that come the end of, say, that macro cycle of 32 weeks, then you might not be potentially performing at the same high level as you would be doing if you were just to not include the deloads at all. The other problem with this as well is the context around who the people are that you're deloading. So again, a lot of my issues with a lot of these studies are we're not doing this stuff on competitive bodybuilders who are world championship level getting 95% and they're natural bodybuilders. Like it's very often it's rolled out on some collegiate athletes, second and third year, all perfectly healthy. We're not monitoring dietary intake very often as well at the same time. And they're 12-week studies very often at best, maybe not often supervised. And the execution is not always the best as well. So I'm not always 100% that a full deload is necessary. But then you can do other things like you've suggested, like reducing total volume. So sets and reps can or rather not reps, sets can get reduced, or exercise selection can get modified for example, to take some of that fatigue out of it. And again, I don't know what you think of this, but the zeitgeist has kind of changed a lot. And prominent fixtures in this area were guys like Mike Israetel, and he was very much into concepts like maximum recoverable volume and junk volume and reps and reserve. And you know what? I think there's value in a lot of that stuff. But it felt like with a lot of that stuff that a lot of guys were jumping onto trends and they were saying it all had to be all of this. And they weren't contextualizing with, well, it's probably not all like that, black or white. That the true answer is probably somewhere in the middle. And he's had certainly a bit of a backlash in recent times around that training. And it almost seems like, for me anyway, if you're going to flip-flop that much from one extreme to the next, then I think that hurts your credibility a bit. But that's just how I think about it. Yeah. I don't know. I've talked a lot there. What do you think?
Yeah, it got a wee bit repetitive. Dr. Mike Israetel talking about maximal adaptive volume. We had minimal volume, minimal effective volume, all this stuff, and right through the spectrum. I think as a text, it's actually not a bad thing. But
it's cool.
Because look, what we're trying to do is come out with statements that are going to have potential positive impact on a global population of fitness enthusiasts. So it's very hard to be right for everyone, right? And that's whenever we have the benefit of working with clients individually and finding what makes them tick. Oh, he's smaller joints. I'm just saying. Different things. I'm looking at their structure and how they move and where they weak, and you're really trying to get everything refined for that individual. But one of the things that I think before you start discussing how much volume is necessary is how much of the volume is actual quality. So
it's so true.
Look, I've got loads of guys I coach who are extremely good coaches, and they send me their training videos, and I critique it, and I find flaws in everything. And the next week they send their videos back through for a secondary assessment with the sort of up-regulation on that performance in the technique. And they're every single time they're like, mate, I felt so much more. And I'm talking about guys that have trained for 10, 15 years. So there's always ability to refine. And then we can go to the analogy I used in a week's previous episode that we talked about. And I said, it's like a professional dart player, how many darts he needs to hit 180 compared to a complete rookie.
Yeah.
If your sets are really low intensity and low recruitment, should we say, for muscle areas that you're trying to target, you'll probably get away with doing more sets. If you're really locked in and taking that muscle truly to close proximity to its failure and capability to generate force, then you probably only need one really good set, two at the absolute most. And three's 10, like a lot of the science is sort of maybe saying that it's beyond that point where it's like a negative return almost, where you'll get a little bit of progress out of the third, but not in relation to the ratio of effort put in.
Yeah, diminishing returns. Yeah, and you're moving into that Israel stuff, which is,
So
as we say, junk volume.
for me, whenever one of the things I'm a fan of with people going through prep is you get closer, get acclimated to all your patterns. For me, the last time I would change a program for somebody before they go into their first comp of the season would be 8 weeks, generally 10 weeks would be the last time I would give them a new program that they can master, acclimate to those patterns to make sure that they're safe and feel good with them as they go into that competition.
Yeah, safety is an important point.
So it's not that I would change their program, but I might exclude certain exercises if I have to handle that volume, quantity, and stress quantity a little bit more effectively. But I would still keep the same exercises. Ideally, I wouldn't be doing a deload in terms of change in movements. It would be the same movements, maybe with a lower RPE and maybe with a slight reduction in total working volume.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think that stuff's all good there, James. I've got another. It's continuing with this theme on here because somebody asked me about this question the other day, and I think your take on this will be good. It's about like cardio and how that might potentially interfere with recovery and leg development specifically. So we're talking about deloads, but how does cardio factor in with this? And does that change your preference? Because I mean, I've got thoughts on this as well about the type of cardio which people are doing or prescribing, and everyone does the StairMaster. Why is everyone obsessed with a StairMaster? I mean, it's been this is not a new thing. People have been doing StairMasters for I don't know, since I started doing it. And people doing Stairmaster backwards as well. That was popular. Are people still doing that? That was
Hopefully not.
popular for a while.
Yeah. I think Kai Green made it really fashionable, him with the big hoodie and stuff on.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
wearing rider words and the sweat's beating out of him. And I think probably global sales of StairMaster probably increased by 400% whenever the Generation Iron, etc., was released. So I think they are trying, and they are a great piece of kit. Essentially, it would be like, we'd consider a low-ish impact exercise.
Yeah.
But it has a high recruitment capacity as well because you're actively having to contract into quads and glutes to move through that. If somebody had big enough legs and had a lot of fat still in their lower body, and they maybe didn't have the same sort of size or mass in the upper body, then I would be saying a lower body bias cardio may be better. So if, for example,
Yeah, because your capacity to deal with stress is going to be better because you've got all of that leg muscle there, right?
Yeah.
And your upper body might get fatigued for your other exercises later on in the week, like I don't know, a bench press, for example. But because you've got the muscle mass, when you do the leg press later on in the week, you can cope, right?
Yeah.
I think I maybe just took the words out of your mouth.
Yeah, that's it. That's pretty much it. I do think look, the first question is, what if you have 5 different pieces of cardio kit? What does that individual client, and what piece could that individual client work the best on? So because look, if we enjoy a specific cardio, we're probably going to be happier in our misery.
Yeah.
Pushing to do it.
Yeah. So yeah. And that's always an important point.
It would affect the quality of the cardio, and that's a big thing for people. It's not, well, I do 30 minutes of cardio per day. I'm like going, what's the quality?
Yeah, that's so true.
If you're then it's probably you might as well just go for a light walk. If you're using cardio as a mode of caloric expenditure, then you need to get that heart rate up higher than what you would going for a walk outside.
Yeah.
That's key.
And that's the point that I always make about cardio, and people don't seem to understand this. They talk about I'm in the fat burning zone, And you're like, right, okay, you're in a fat burning zone, but you burned 100 calories.
Yeah,
If you worked at a higher intensity, you'd burn 200 calories.
yeah,
And you wouldn't be maybe quite in your fat burning zone, but you actually would have burnt 90 to 150 calories of fat compared to only say 70 calories of fat.
yeah.
So what do you want to do? Like it's up to you, right?
I think actually, depleting blood oxygen saturation is a good thing. Like if we look at things like, yes, it has a minimal role in the grand scheme of things, but where every percent of margin is important in this game, in natural bodybuilding, we have to burn it. We can't take things to burn it. We look at the likes of EPOC,
Yeah.
which might be an additional, depending on the size of the individual, 40 to 70 calories per day, maybe.
When we talk about EPOC, for anyone who's not familiar, that is the post-exercise oxygen consumption. So if you do a very hard session, your rate of oxygen consumption still stays elevated for a period of time post-exercise.
Yeah.
That's what that is.
So that would be the difference in doing 20 minutes of, I did my 20 minutes of cardio, or I did
Yeah.
my 20 minutes of cardio. The 20 minutes of cardio that you've worked harder on, you will burn more calories through the duration of that 20 minutes, but you'll also burn more external from the session itself than what you would with the sauntered 20 minutes.
Yeah. I wonder if people realize this as well, right? One of the things that your body does as an evolutionary adaptation is that as you get fitter, your capacity to burn fat at higher thresholds increases. So
Yeah,
whereas your fat burning zone might have been, say, 60 or 65% your max heart rate, when you start getting fitter, that shifts up towards 67%, 68%, 69%, 70%, right? And your ability to access intramuscular triglyceride stores increases as well, plus your ability to metabolize fatty acid improves as well at the same time. So you get better using the fat, and you get better using the fatty acids at a higher intensity. And the reason your body does that is because it's getting better at sparing the carbohydrate in your muscle
yeah,
because it wants to hold on to the carbohydrate because it needs the carbohydrate for high energy contractions and to well, essentially for that, right? So you're holding on to it. So you get better at it as well. So again, it's not like okay, I'm exercising at higher intensity and all of a sudden I'm not burning fat anymore. No, you are. You're getting better and better at doing it as well at the same time. Um, I've kind of lost my train of thought there where I was going after that. You have got the subsequent follow-on effect though, right? Which is low intensity doesn't necessarily interfere with the training.
yeah.
And that's the counter argument, right?
Well, look, I would agree with that statement 15 years ago before people started allocating steps as
Oh,
modes
yeah, okay.
as mode of expenditure. For me, if I'm going to allocate cardio, it's not steps. If I might say to that individual, right, look, I want you to average 8,000 steps per day. I might have clients that are working, on computers or whatever else, and they're quite sedentary.
Oh, it's very easy to do nothing. That's why I've got a stand-up desk.
Yeah, so I would say, look, aim for 8K steps. I also want you to do 20 minutes cardio, and I want that 20.
Yeah.
And I might, once I've run the diagnostic on that, instead of increasing the time, I increase their target kilocalorie expenditure, their totals. Um, so, because if you could increase the time on that person from 20 to 25, and they could subsequently just work with less intensity and end up with the same result, even though they're allocating more time for cardio. So instead, I would go,
Yeah, yeah, you're totally right.
right, your carrot here, guys, is if you work harder and you hit that kilocalorie target in 18 minutes, then you're off the piece of kit in 18, not 20, 25. So it's not the duration for me at that point. The reason why I'm allocating actual cardio and not steps, if I was trying to keep the intensity down, I'd just go, look, let's add 2 more K steps per day, because that's going to be low steady state. It's going to be low intensity for
Yeah.
the most part, right? Heart rate's not really going to be that elevated for most fit individuals we're talking about here. So if I'm going to allocate cardio, I want that person to work on that, get on there, get that heart rate up, as you said, in around that sort of 65% of maximal heart rate is probably not a bad zone to sort of be in and around for the duration of that time, and even like do it sort of intermittent, maybe like really blast it or
Yeah, like a sprint. Yeah.
yeah, more sort of interval style, but have still good intensity with the lower intensity of the two phases. So push hard and recover a little bit, still with quite a lot of difficulty, and boost between those 2 points.
So we're talking like a cruise
Yeah,
interval style training with it. And
yeah,
I'm all for that as well. I mean, I often say to guys when they're doing cardio, I'm like, look, if you're doing 20 minutes, then you need to be working between, say, 70 and 90 RPM. And every single time you go onto that piece of exercise kit, you should be looking at the time that you're covering in that time, or sorry, distance that you're covering in that time. And you should be trying to go a little bit further.
yeah,
You should be all trying to beat your last session. And that's the same concept that you're talking about there with calories getting burned within a session, because you'll never beat it. You can always improve.
yeah,
So you're always working really, really hard. And like people don't appreciate like unless you ever push yourself. And it's the same sort of conversation we're having with like deloads and stuff like that. Unless you ever overreach, you don't get fitter. You never adapt unless you're actually causing your body to put a little bit of stress in your frame. So that, and all these discussions about deloads and everything like that, the thing that I've always been pulling my hair about, I'm like, well, how are you? Let's not try and be less. I've always wanted to be the ultimate. I've always wanted to be the ultimate muscular, the ultimate endurance, the ultimate strong, like all of these things, so I can be the best athlete I can possibly be, rather than this. Let's just do enough. Let's
yeah,
just do enough. Like and I always think that's like the counter to being high performance,
yeah,
because there's no high performance athlete wants less. The big thing that with the high performance athlete is we often have to be held back. And there's a lot of guys that have pushed this message for a long time, and I look at them like, you don't really look like anything.
yeah, yeah,
You're like, and you can get better results out of high quality nutrition and diet and supplementation and poor training than you can out of high quality training and poor nutrition.
yeah,
If you can combine the two, then you're always on to a winner. And I think there's a lot of guys that just the nutrition's good, they've kind of got that concept down, the strategy's good, but you just the training quality's poor.
yeah,
Yeah, that's just my own thoughts on that one. The other thing that I was thinking about, James, when you're talking here was I don't know what it is. You probably get these conversations as well. Like, how do people struggle with this concept between steps and cardio?
yeah.
Like, do you not understand that steps count as cardio? Like, like the what don't you understand about this?
Yeah, yeah. I think, as you said, there's people saying I'm not doing any cardio, but I'm just doing 12K steps per day.
So you're doing cardio,
You're doing cardio. You're actively moving to elevate heart rate. You're
and you've
actively,
increased your steps recently, so you're monitoring it. So you're
yeah,
doing cardio.
yes. For me, like you know yourself, Andrew. Whenever you're giving instruction to clients, you have to be really clear. Even with the best intentional
Oh
athletes,
God,
I need to say, right, guys, look, even if the phrase, because people can fall victim to how they feel, and then everything diminishes performance. It affects everything. So, as the phrase goes, if you walk with a lame man, you get a limp. You develop a limp. You know
yeah,
what I mean? So, whenever you expect to feel fatigued and everything that you do is going to be less than what you're actually capable of, you end up like performing just that way. And instead, it's that great athletes have the ability to like my performance shouldn't care how I feel. My performance should be an intentional pursuit where I'm going into that gym and this is the level and standard that I have set. And again, I will say it again, the guys who are at the top of this game in natural bodybuilding are exceptionally good at that. There's very few people that are going to walk around sauntering, complaining about their diet, complaining about having to do 2,000 more steps. If that's the number that you need to do, that's what gets done.
yeah. That's such a great point there. That intentional pursuit. I wrote that down. I like that, James. Do you
Yeah.
know what? I trained with a guy a few weeks ago, a boy called Gerard. Nice guy. He just started out the gym, and I said, oh, I'll train with you. And he's like, I'll not be able to lift as much as you and all this. I was like, listen, we're both doing the same thing. Let's not worry about it. All I'm asking from
It
you
must be
is
as
that you
hell.
just try your best and try your hardest, right? And you know what? He did do that. He tried his absolute best. I had a really good session. He had a good session. I've trained with guys that have coasted through sessions and there's no intent before. And I've trained with other guys who have been bringing all their life problems and all that sort of stuff in here. And I've said to them, I've been like, look, that is a fucking amateur mindset. Don't bring that shit in here when I'm trying to fucking train. I'm not fucking interested. I
Yeah,
am that focused on this thing that I am trying to do because this is my time in here just now. Not only to let off some steam or anything like that, but this is something I love doing and I'm doing it with intention
yeah,
and purpose from there. So if you want to come train with me, fucking pull your socks up and do your best.
yeah, yeah.
I'm reminded of that bravado session we did when we were both absolutely hungover to fuck, but none of us gave an inch.
There was, yeah. You were sick, weren't you?
I think I was.
You. That was.
I certainly had a headache, and it's a good Billy Conway joke where he describes a man waking up and he's got such a sore head that he feels like he's wearing a balaclava underneath his skin.
Yeah, I have to clarify. There was we had the battle of Irish versus Scotch whiskies that night, and I have an extensive
You
range of
do.
whiskies. There are probably 70, 80 bottles from Scotland, Ireland, Japan, different places I got. And we started just opening them, and I think maybe, no word of a lie, 18 generous shots of whiskey each, wine, cigar, all the things you shouldn't do as a professional natural athlete.
We were letting off steam.
But we went in the next day, and that session, as hard as it was, we both had our poker face on and buried some serious weight.
Oh, we did. We did. It was good fun. It was
Yeah,
good fun. I very much loved it. And I've said this to you before, by the way. You fucking thrive on burying people.
yeah,
You absolutely love it. And I can see it in your eye. You're like a tiger
I love it.
looking for weakness when you stalk a plaque. You're like, I'm going to fuck this guy up.
I can smell the adrenaline. I can smell the cortisol. I'm like, yeah, that's my favorite victim cologne.
Do you know what? I admire the mindset to still have that killer instinct after 30 odd years of training. Because younger me certainly has more of it in me than what I've got now. But I can switch it on much more. Well, I can switch it on when it's needed.
Yeah,
James, I think we've done well here with this particular episode. On this one, I think there's some great stuff on here. We can wrap it up. Oh, this is a little tidbit I think you'll like before we go. When I worked with the rugby guys at the SRU, the strength and conditioning coaches used to prescribe, and this fits in quite well with our deload chat, off feet conditioning. They were very fond of ski ergs. So when the guys had done a lot of running, a lot of conditioning, they would switch to doing like the upper body skiing on there to take the stress off. And I had that in the back of my head and it just popped back in that I wanted to say on there.
good.
Right, let's wrap this up from here. Guys, just a reminder before we close this out, next week, 30th of August, or whenever you're listening to this, 2 p.m., myself, James, and the guys from WNBF Ireland, we will be doing the seminar. So please do get in touch if you're wanting to attend that one. We'll record it for sure and send in your questions as well. Thank you as always for your support. I'm Dr. Andrew Spell. This has been James Melville. James, where can people find you?
Just the usual Instagram, James_W_Melville, or I'm the head coach at Team Compound Prep Coaching. I also own the Compound Room Gym, which is a private members-only facility in Lisburn, Northern Ireland. So you can message any of those pages to get in touch.
You're also now, I see on Instagram, Team Compound Prep Posing as well. So I'll include that link.
Posing Academy,
Posing Academy, sorry. That's
the Edell's page.
Well, so people can find Edel on there as well.
Yeah.
Edel's obviously your partner
Yeah.
on there, and she's a very good bodybuilder herself, and
Yeah.
she obviously teaches the posing, hence the Posing Academy. I'm the Natural Bodybuilding Coach. You can find me on the internet. You'll find www.naturalbodybuildingcoach.com. And you can find me, Dr. Andrew Chappell, on the Instagram as well. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your attention. Like, share, subscribe, leave us some comments, and we look forward to hearing your feedback and hearing from you all again soon. All right, ciao, ciao.